I uncovered the terrifying curse of Heol Fanog, and these dark entities nearly took my soul. I never should have opened that door. The smell hit me first, a damp, musty odor that clawed at my throat. I stood frozen, my heart racing. The chill of the night seeped through the cracks in the walls, wrapping around me like icy fingers. It was supposed to be a fun ghost hunt, just a few friends and me, trying to find some old folklore in the Welsh countryside. But now, I felt the weight of the darkness pressing in, a thick fog of dread. Heol Fanog was just another random spot we picked off some spooky list online, an old, crumbling building long abandoned. It had this eerie reputation, whispers of curses and strange sightings. When we arrived, the moonlight dripped through the twisted branches overhead, casting monstrous shadows that danced on the ground. The wind howled softly, like a warning, but we laughed it off. It always seemed like a game until it wasn't. I remember my friends' faces illuminated by our flashlights, excitement mixed with nervous giggles. But I felt different. Something prickled at my skin. The urge to turn back was strong, but curiosity pulled me deeper. We ventured inside, air thick and stale, filled with the echo of our footsteps that felt more and more like a countdown. Then, the sounds began. Faint creaking at first, like someone shifting in the dark. I tried to convince myself it was just the old wood groaning, but the whispers followed, each word a chilling invite. I strained to hear, only to find silence enveloping us again, like a predator stalking its prey. As we wandered through long empty rooms, my friends pointed out oddities: a chair tilting precariously on two legs, dust dancing in the beams of light. My heart pounded at every shadow that flickered, every creak that echoed. My hands trembled as I gripped my flashlight tighter, each breath colder than the last. Something shifted in my periphery. I saw it, a figure, just a glimpse, a dark silhouette darting behind the wall. My stomach dropped. I called out, but the sound caught in my throat, a lump of unease. My friends laughed, but the laughter was hollow. I could see it in their eyes. They felt it too. The air grew heavier. I could almost taste the fear, a metallic tang sitting uncomfortably on my tongue. Then came the noises again, more pronounced now, scratching, like nails on wood. I felt a heat rise in my chest, a desperate urge to escape. But the door we came through was gone, vanished as if this place was alive, shifting around us. Panic surged. I turned to my friends, their faces shadows of confusion and dread. "We need to leave," I shouted, my voice cracking. But the moment I said it, the lights flickered. Darkness swallowed us whole. In that suffocating void, I heard a low growl, the whisper of breath so close it sent icy chills racing down my spine. I stumbled backward, crashing into something cold and solid. It felt like an arm. I screamed, the sound echoing into the nowhere. The air vibrated with a dark energy, a force trying to pull me deeper into the abyss. Then, it happened. A blinding flash lit up the room just for a second. I saw it. A figure. Tall and twisted. Eyes glowing like embers in the dark. The scream I'd held in burst forth, a primal sound of pure terror as the door slammed shut behind me. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The darkness felt alive, thick with anticipation. My scream echoed back at me, twisted and mocking, swallowed whole by the oppressive silence that followed. I stumbled back, feeling my heart hammer in my chest like a frantic bird trying to escape a cage. The flickering light faded, plunging us back into the choking blackness. Panic surged anew as I reached out in front of me, my fingers brushing against something cold and uneven. A wall, maybe? No, it felt softer, pulsing beneath my touch. My breath quickened. I could hear my friends' voices mingled with the silence, their laughter replaced by frantic whispers. I strained to listen, but the words melted into incomprehensible murmurs, as if something foul was blocking the sound, distorting every syllable. The air shifted unexpectedly, a gust swirling around us, bringing with it the scent of decay like rotting flesh mingled with damp earth. "Sam, is that you?" A voice called out in the dark. I recognized it as Mia's, but there was an edge to her tone that sent a shiver down my spine. "I'm here," I shouted back, but my voice felt feeble, swallowed quickly by the surrounding shadows. "Why can't we see anything?" Her voice trembled harder, almost breaking. "The flashlight, it won't work." I fumbled for my phone, praying for even the faintest light as the battery flickered and died, plunging us into deeper despair. In the void, I could sense the presence of something beyond our comprehension, lurking just out of sight, waiting. "We need to find a way out," shouted Ryan, his voice cracking. "Stay together." But together felt like an illusion, a fleeting notion. I reached out blindly, brushing against another trembling form, Ella, her hand cold as ice. "What's happening?" she whispered, terror lacing her voice. "Shoo," I said, trying to calm her. But the whispers intensified, concerting into a chorus of lacy voices, weaving in and out, begging for attention. "Help us, join us, keep us." Abruptly, the scratching returned like nails on the wood, only now it sounded like a chorus, a cacophony of discord, each scraping dragging deeper ugliness into our minds. I felt a pulse beneath my fingertips where I pressed against the wall. It jolted like a heartbeat, quickening, as if responding to the growing dread. A sudden heavy thud echoed through the room, it rattled the very air around us. "What was that?" Ryan breathed in shock. "I don't know," I whispered back, recoiling away from the presence I could feel crawling toward us. Fear gripped my throat tightly. Before I could reason with myself to move, the ground beneath us shuddered violently. Footsteps from somewhere beyond, heavy and deliberate, approached. They were not our own. My heart was a drum of terror in my chest as I turned slightly, desperate to catch a glimpse of whatever was encroaching on our fragile sanctuary. A sliver of light seeped through the cracks of what felt like a door behind me, faint but distinct, a faint promise of escape. Then came the voice, a low and guttural rasp that wrapped around my spine, freezing me in place. "You should have never come here." The sound rippled through the air, the words a warning, a curse woven into the fabric of the night. Then I saw it, a fleeting shadow against the light. The lurch of panic sent me reeling backward, stumbling into my friends. "It's coming!" I cried. We huddled together, breathless as the figure emerged. It was a darker shadow than the dark itself, a form too twisted to comprehend, the glowing embers for eyes hanging like bulbs of despair, piercing through the gloom. And in an agonizing moment, with the squelching of its feet echoing closer, the very foundation of the room snapped. We all screamed, the sound ripping through us like tattered cloth, as the floorboards erupted beneath our feet. Falling, into the black abyss through a gaping maw that opened in the ground, everything spun a sickening tumble through darkness, into a void where whispers turned to howls, and the silhouette of dread loomed ever closer, and just before the endless plunge consumed me entirely, I spotted her. A flicker of red hair, a glimmer of fear etched across Mia's pale face, her eyes wide with horror as she was dragged down into the depths beyond my grasp. Then darkness swallowed me whole. The fall seemed endless, the air around us thickening, compressing with each passing second as I plummeted deeper into whatever hell awaited below. My screams had melded with the howling chorus of the abyss, a cacophony of terror that choked the very breath from my lungs. Time lost its meaning, seconds stretched into what felt like hours, each moment a desperate grasp at sanity while the shadows clawed at my mind. Then, with a jarring crash, I landed on something soft but slippery. It smelled of sodden earth and decay, a graveyard of old secrets buried beneath centuries of lost souls. I lay still for a moment, trying to orient myself amidst the confusion, the reverberations of our descent still ringing painfully in my ears. "Mia!" I shouted, my voice hoarse. "Ryan! Ella!" Panic poured from my lips as I pushed myself upright, turning in frantic circles, my heart thudding against my ribcage as dread coiled within me like a serpent ready to strike. There was no answer, only the oppressive silence that weighed down like a shroud. I scrabbled to my feet, and with cautious movements, I reached out to touch the cold, damp walls surrounding me. It felt as if they were alive, shifting slightly under my fingers, pulsating like a heart that had long lost its will to beat. I drew my phone from my pocket, desperate to summon some light, but only a flicker responded, casting ridiculous shadows that danced like grotesque puppets on the walls. It was all I had to assure me that I was still tethered to reality, even as my heart screamed for escape. "Guys!" I called again, the loneliness of the cavern closing in like a noose. Every breath tasted stale and rank, the air thick and suffocating, filled with an almost palpable dread that seemed to whisper my name. I took a step forward, my mind racing through images of my friends' faces displayed in agony as they would soon join me in this cursed pit, and then I heard the unmistakable sound of shuffling footsteps, slow and deliberate, creeping through the darkness. My chest tightened as instinct urged me to run, to flee from this place filled with death and despair. I spun around and, without further thought, pushed through the rising panic, moving deeper into the maw of this unforgiving cavern. With each step, the ground beneath me shifted, the walls whispering low to each other in an indecipherable language spun from fear. I quickened my pace, following the faint echoes in the distance, willing for it to be my friends. My breath caught as I rounded a bend, the oppressive weight of shadows seeming to pull stronger, more erratic, as if the very essence of the darkness turned hostile. As I ventured deeper, I stumbled upon an enormous chamber, air thick with the lingering scent of decay. My small beam flickered across the walls, revealing grotesque symbols carved into the stone, twisting and writhing as if alive. They pulsed in response to the chaos around me, each symbol an echo of agony, a testament to the pain this place had witnessed. "Mia?" I called out once more, my voice trembling. There was a beat of silence, and then "Help us." The guttural chorus rose from the shadows, chilling me to the bone like a winter's breath. It was a blend of my friends' voices, layered with something darker, something hungry. In horror, I turned back, the beam of light morphing into a trembling extension of my fear. I considered fleeing, but another sound held me captive, a sliding, slithering sound that wrapped around my ankles, constricting, pushing me to the ground. The chill seeped into my bones, seeping with an insistent tug that compelled me to face whatever loomed behind me. I pivoted, breath hitching as the darkness twisted into a tangible form. A mass emerged, far too large to fit within my comprehension, baleful eyes that multiplied under the flickering light, swelling into 1,000 grotesque visages. All the screams of lost souls echoed back at me, a relentless serenade of despair. Before I could react, the eyes of the entity seemed to pierce through me, dissecting my very essence, my fears, my regrets, and my past, laying them bare for its eternal scrutiny. The realization thundered in my mind: it wasn't just a creature it wanted. It sought my soul. "Join us!" a chorus coalesced around me, blended with the breathing of shadows, inching closer, overwhelming me with a mounting pressure to succumb. Suddenly, a figure burst from the darkness, a blur of red hair, a flash of fear. "Sam! Run!" But the sound of her voice cracked like glass, swallowed by the now unending cacophony of despair that threatened to engulf us both. Before I could even process Mia's sudden appearance, something behind me seized my shoulder with a chilling grip. I gasped as I felt the coldness seep through my skin, draining the warmth from my veins. As I turned to face my captor, the room spun, shadows closing in as darkness engulfed us. The last thing I saw were the malevolent eyes, restless and hungry, and then everything shattered, plunging me back into the abyss, cascading into a world wrapped in misery where I was far too late to escape the curse that had claimed us all. And then the whispers grew loud, blaring like a siren in the encroaching darkness. They already knew my name, and soon, they would know my fate. The world reassembled around me slowly, cobwebbed with thick shadows that pulled at the edges of my vision. I lay on the ground, slick and damp, shivering as icy tendrils slinked around my ankles and restrained me. Staring into the depths of the crushing dark, I felt utterly alone, the sensation of being swallowed whole gnawing at my insides. Sam. Mia's voice cut through the silence again, raw with panic. It yanked at threads of my foggy consciousness, pulling me back into a semblance of reality. Where are you? Her voice echoed, a haunting melody etched with desperation, slicing through the blanket of gloom that threatened to smother me. I'm here. I'm with you. Here. I responded, but my voice barely escaped, muffled by the thick air that coiled around me, as if attempting to stifle my very breath. Mia, don't move. The shadows flickered, swirling as if stirred by an unseen gust, whispering incomprehensibilities that clung to the air. Desperation coursed through me as I struggled against the icy grip now wrapping around my waist, trying to force me into the ground. My heart beat wildly. That cursed entity, whatever it was, loomed just out of reach, hungry and patient. Where are you? Mia cried out, panic rising in her tone. Follow my voice. I called, feeling the pressure of the darkness constricting tighter with each word I spoke. But don't touch anything. Seconds stretched into eternity as I braced myself, fighting to pull free of the chilling grasp. I could hear her breathing ragged but steady as it filled the air, strength bubbling through the cacophony. When she finally emerged from the shadows, her face was pale, the terror etched in the lines around her eyes. Mia. I whispered, nearly choking on the suffocating dread. But as relief flickered through me, something shifted behind her. The shadows twisted, coiling like serpents wading through thick fog, an ominous rustling that seemed to tease at my sanity. The screeching whispers rose louder, drowning out any sense of comfort, falling heavily upon us. Join us, they chanted, an innocence corrupted, the echoes wrapping around us like a noose. Mia, look out! I shouted, pointing back as the darkness coiled tighter. But it was too late. From the shadows, a spindly hand, pale as bone, shot forth, twisted fingers clawing towards her. Mia's eyes widened, and she stumbled back, but the very ground seemed to shift beneath her. She lost her footing, her silence swallowed by the abyss that beckoned with a vile hunger. Mia! My scream splintered the fragile air, desperation clawing through me as I lunged toward her, fighting against the suffocating shadows that clung to my body. But they slithered and twisted, their grip a palpable weight, dragging me down with each inch I attempted to reclaim. As I fell, the hand receded like a retreating wave, but I could see it in the depths, the myriad of eyes watching, waiting, hungry for something else. Sam! Help! Her voice, once vibrant and alive, began to crack under the strain, the light in her eyes dimming. The darkness churned, a thunderous roar rising, gnashing and battering the walls of my mind as images of lost souls and anguished faces arose from the enveloping void. Don't look at them! I shouted, don't look into their eyes. I knew those eyes, each a memory of pain, each a story lost to time. They reached out to us, their haunting whispers stitching themselves into the very fabric of our thoughts. Mia, come back. My heart exploded with fear, frantically scanning our surroundings for anything that could help. In the distance, I spotted a single flicker, an ember barely glowing, but in this darkness, it was everything. I surged toward it, only to feel the shadows tighten once more, clawing at my will to survive. Join us, the whispers were not merely echoes but shrieks of agonized souls, each voice a plea to surrender, to forsake hope. No! No! I clenched my jaw, tightening my fists against the onslaught, resisting their call. I could still see Mia struggling in the distance, her strength pitted against an unseen force pulling her into the endless night. A sudden surge of resolve coursed through me as I stumbled forward, reaching for that light, desperate to save her. But the moment I turned, I felt a sharp cold breath against my ear. You could be free, it hissed, a ghastly fog wrapping around my heart, feeding on my fear. Join us. At that moment, the flickering light extinguished, plunging us both into an abyss darker than before. The world shifted and trembled, the shadows pulsing like a living beast, as something monumental began to churn nearby, a presence far beyond comprehension awakening from its slumber. Suddenly, a scream pierced the air, not mine, not Mia's, but something altogether different, raw and primal, echoing through the cavernous depths. An instant later, a blinding flash illuminated the chamber, and in that fleeting moment, I caught sight of a figure, a towering entity, draped in shadows, with a grotesque maw that yawned wide, threatening to consume us both, and then darkness fell again. We were swept back into the depths without so much as a whisper of warning, spiraling deeper into nightmares, the echoes of despair now woven into the very essence of the curse that strangled Heol Fanog. Mia's voice flickered, a ghost against the encroaching horror. And then emptiness. I felt my heart thudding in my chest, a frenzied drumbeat drowned beneath the relentless swell of darkness. As the oppressive weight of the void compressed around me, each breath I drew felt heavier than the last, flooded with despair. The palpable sense of Mia's presence faded, replaced by the sinister whispers that cooed from the blackness. A sudden chill danced over my skin, prickling like icy fingernails scraping against bone. I turned, squinting into the engulfing gloom, but there was no sign of her, the flickering ember of hope extinguished in an all-consuming night. Mia! I rasped, my voice cracking, swallowed by the darkness. As I plunged deeper into this nightmare, frantic plans to rescue her spiraled into chaos. Echoes of her cries twisted around me, warping into agonized pleas that sent bile surging into my throat. Every step I took felt as if I was wading through a viscous substance, the ground beneath my feet writhing like a living thing, piercing through the high-pitched whispers. I swore I heard something else, a low, guttural growl emanating from the shadows, a sound drenched in malice and age. I turned on my heel, adrenaline pumping through my veins, but my eyes could glean nothing from the dense blackness. Join us, the word slithered through the air again, a chilling invitation. The entity that had screamed moments before reverberated a morbid melody, promising dark secrets and unholy knowledge. You're nearly home. Did I want to know what twisted meaning that word held in this haunted domain? It felt grotesque to even consider it, yet the sentiment throbbed in the air, warm and intoxicating, as if the darkness were cradling me. Flashes of memories of sunlight, laughter, and warmth tugged at me, weaving themselves through the shackles of despair. I made a desperate decision. If the darkness sought to entrap me, I would not become another whisper lost. Clenching my fists, I yelled, I am not your prisoner. I will not join the damned. The shadows, offended, recoiled, and in the silence that followed, I glimpsed flickers of light again. Soft and warm, they beckoned me forward, tiny luminescent orbs, like will-o'-the-wisps teasing the edges of my vision. Cautiously, I stepped toward them, my skin prickling as a force crackled through the air. The chill receded, replaced by burning warmth that ignited my resolve. Mia! I yelled again, more in hope than command, thrusting my hands forward in the direction of the flickering lights. With each step, they pulsed with intensity, wrapping around me like ribbons of warmth, guiding me momentarily from the clutches of despair. Just as I reached out, someone gasped behind me, a sound that pierced through the dimness, a desperate inhale that chilled my blood to ice. I spun around, heart hammering, the warmth around me fading to a distant memory. Mia? I called, trying to mask my own trembling. But what emerged from the fringes of the dark was not her. It was a figure, shrouded in writhing shadows, stepping into the dimly illuminated space. The grotesquely elongated limbs reached for me, silhouette stretching far beyond natural limits, while a pulsing red glow emanated from within its chest. A voice as shattered as glass echoed, shards of haunting laughter coated in grief. Sam, you came, it trailed off, the tone slithering like a serpent around my thoughts, dark and clawing. But you've brought only despair. Who are you? I stammered, fighting to resist the tug of its presence. But those eyes, twin voids of endless night, draw me in a magnetic force threatening to unravel my sanity. I am the keeper of their truths, it crooned, the harbinger of the lost. And now you shall know my game. Before I could pull away, shadowy tendrils wrapped around my wrist, and a sickening warmth seeped into my skin, flooding my mind with turbulent images. I witnessed agony, despair reflected in the eyes of those trapped beyond the veil, a never-ending cycle that reached to pull at my soul. I gasped, heart racing as the memories rolled forth, each one sparking insatiable dread that I closed my eyes. Fighting against the encroaching tide, every fiber of my being clinging to the flickering lights. "Let me go!" I cried, feeling the weight of their sorrow press upon me, daggers plunging into my skin. "It's already too late," it whispered, and suddenly, the darkness began to swirl violently as if manifesting its own rage. The pressure built around us, a storm existing beyond the shadows, threatening to swallow us whole. And then, a deafening roar erupted, drowning out all else, a cacophony that shook the very fabric of the abyss, as from the depths, an unfathomable shape began to emerge. As the creature loomed larger, those glowing orbs flickered in response, revealing faces I knew too well, each one a sliver of torment, each a shadow of Mia, pulling me toward an unknown fate. "Mia!" I screamed, desperately searching for her in the maelstrom of chaos. The Keeper's laughter unfurled like a dark banner as the impending darkness intensified, eroding the boundaries of reality itself. Just as everything along the horizon dissolved into turbulent shadows, a sliver of light burst from behind me, illuminating the monstrous entity barreling towards us. But this light was different. It was blinding and electric, a harbinger of something ancient and powerful, and then, as it rushed forth, I felt the ground shift, tipping beneath me. I couldn't let go, couldn't surrender to the shadows. But as I felt the world twist, just before darkness closed in, I understood I was not alone, and within the heart of that glowing dread, I realized something unspeakable awaited for us both. "Help me, Sam!" The last echo of Mia's voice pierced through the darkness, trailing into the void with an unforgiving finality. Then silence. An ominous stillness that rippled through the very fabric of the darkness. And within that chilling calm, unseen eyes were now drawn to my presence, hungry and aware, fixating on my very essence. As an explosion of chaotic shadows enveloped me, I braced for the grip of oblivion, knowing that in this madness, the real horror was just beginning. The silence hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, as if the shadows themselves had paused, anticipating what would come next. I felt the warmth of Mia's voice slip into the void, a final thread unraveling and disappearing into the darkness. Panic surged through me, coiling tighter than the tendrils clinging at my wrists. Desperation morphed my thoughts into streams of madness. I was losing her, losing us, and forced to confront a terrifying truth. The Keeper's laughter had wrenched open the door to horrors I couldn't begin to fathom. That my body trembled, the shadows pinning me further into the abyss. Every heartbeat echoed like a death knell, each pulse a reminder of the life draining away as I stood on the precipice of despair. The unseen eyes were now intermingling with whispers, a cacophony of anxiety merging into one monstrous voice echoing within the chasms of my mind. "Feel their anguish, taste their fear." The words slithered around me, punctuated by the writhing darkness that now encased my being. "You are chosen, destined to join the chorus of lament." With a growl, a deep and primal sound that reverberated from the depths of my soul, I pulled against the shadows, willing my limbs to break free, to reach beyond the encroaching night. I was nothing more than a flickering flame, a fading ember, and yet I fought, driven by the memory of Mia's laughter, the warmth of her touch, the echo of our shared dreams. As I strained against the grasp of despair, I felt something shift beneath the darkness, a current of energy surging through, something colder than the whispers and more lethal than the shadows. The Keeper's eyes, those twin abysses of black, widened, reflecting something unseen. "You dare resist?" Its laughter morphed into a deep growl, shaking me to my core. "You will learn the price of defiance." Suddenly, a bolt of icy realization surged through me. The true horror entwined within those shadows was an eternity in torment, a fate sealed in perpetual despair. And as the Keeper's form swelled, a wave of rampant fear swept across the expanse. Fear pulled tightly at the seams of the darkness, twisting like a vice. Then, a jarring vision collided with my thoughts, faces once lost to time, filled with torment, hands reaching through the dark, pleading for relief from an anguish that was palpable. They whispered in a chorus, "Help us break free." Their cries fed the malevolent energy surrounding me, for it yearned to consume yet another soul. "Stop!" I screamed, detaching from the terror. The light behind me flickered, bursting forth with ephemeral brilliance, clashing violently with the darkness, illuminating forgotten memories like fractured glass. I caught glimpses of the past laughter, love, forgotten warmth that ignited fury in my heart. I was going to save Mia. Somehow, I had to. The keeper reacted repulsively, the shadows recoiling as the light drew closer. "You are too late." It screeched, a strident discordant howl that echoed through the dark, growing in pitch as my resolve solidified. "This isn't about you anymore, boy. This is your punishment." Emboldened by the light, I understood. I would turn this curse against them. I channeled every ounce of love, every ounce of fury for Mia that bubbled within. "I won't let you take us," I bellowed, igniting the light inside me until it pressed against the shackles binding my limbs. The tendrils hissed, retreating, as if recoiling from my defiance, as if I was a burning ember in their relentless sea of obscurity. The ground trembled subtly beneath my feet, a mutating energy tracing the contours of the void. The faces began to coalesce, merging with the warm light around me, pushing the shadows further back. "Together," I implored, grasping at their desperation. "We can fight." But just as I summarily fortified my will, another ear-piercing roar shook the ground. It came from deeper within the shadows, an entity awakening from unknown depths, a terror far older than the keeper. The air thickened and crackled, suffused with a frequency that reverberated against my skull, a reminder of what I feared. From the tumultuous dark, an immense form pushed through, limbs contorted and wriggling, cascading shadows that writhed with unnatural urgency. It advanced with a singular focus, the swirling mass of black twisting to unveil piercing red eyes searing into my very soul. "Mia!" I cried, torn between the demand of my heart and the horror unfolding before me. A flash of white light sparked in the distance. Was it possible? Was she near? A moment of hope flared, igniting turbulent emotions within me, but through the chaos, the immense figure roared again, shattering my concentration and severing the fragile connection I had forged. It loomed closer, a nightmarish monument of sinewy darkness. The keeper's form now dwarfed under its shadow, retreating, knowing that it could not contain what prowled behind it. A voice reverberated through my mind, a chilling whisper of fate. "Choose your ending, boy, for it seems you stand at the brink." And at that moment, the darkness surged, splitting apart to reveal an abyss so deep it threatened to swallow every sense of hope whole. As the deafening roar resounded, I realized I had faced one horror, but now two stood before me, each vying for my unraveling, each willing to drown me in their torment. With a pulse of adrenaline, the choice made itself known. I could not falter. I would not surrender. But as the looming abyss reached for me with hungry shadows, I felt the cruel reality bloom, a certainty that no matter the outcome, Mia's fate and perhaps my own lay irrevocably intertwined with the darkness that was waiting to claim us. And in that swirling chaos of fear and fury, as the shadows reached out with glistening claws, my heart stopped, because it dawned on me that to escape, I would have to leave something far more precious behind. Just as the light seemed to splinter, collapsing in on itself, a rending roar pierced the fabric of reality, and the shadows drew closer, threatening to engulf me entirely. Everything faded to black, a cacophony of screams melding into one until I vanished into the void. The darkness enveloped me, an all-consuming void where breath felt futile and panic clawed at the edges of my sanity. The familiar sense of earth and dampness faded, replaced by a metallic tang that made my throat constrict. I floated in that endless blackness, suspended between the haunting echoes of despair and flickering memories of Mia. The sensation of being watched intensified, a swarm of unseen eyes skimming over my skin like a swarm of insects. I imagined their mocking glances, judging, waiting for that moment of betrayal when I would crumble entirely. I was acutely aware that nowhere was safe, none could hear my whispered pleas. I was utterly abandoned, adrift in a sea of nothingness. Then, almost imperceptibly, the shadows began to shift around me, drawing closer like predators circling their prey. From the depths emerged figures, obscured yet distinct, draped in tattered remnants of what could have been the living. Their faces, twisted with pain and sorrow, flickered in and out of sight, each depicting a story of betrayal and anguish beleaguering the soul trapped within Heol Fanog. One amongst them stepped forward, the phantom glimmering with the ephemeral glow of the lost. "Do you see us?" it rasped, a voice like wind scraping against decayed wood. "They pull you closer, promising salvation, but we know the truth. You cannot escape." The horror of the realization sank its teeth deep within me. The keeper was no mere guardian of this realm. It was the architect of our despair, casting us into an unending cycle of torment, siphoning our very essence to sustain its dark dominion. "Help us!" cried another, its faded lips quivering as if wrestling against a long-lost hope. "Free us or join us," resonating in this lament. It was a bait, a lure into their shared agony. I shook my head vehemently. "No. I won't succumb to your despair. I came for Mia." With every fiber of will, I fought against the gnarled hands pushing nightmarish visions deeper into my consciousness. As if in response, the air thickened, a cloying miasma swirling around me. It was like inhaling the very essence of fear itself, a sour, intoxicating aura that blurred the lines between reality and nightmare. I pressed deeper into the memories of light, recalling fleeting moments with Mia, the sound of her laughter chiming through the air, unfurling sweet warmth amidst bitter cold, but the figures grew desperate, their faces contorting, bewitched by the shadows that licked at their souls. "Come, join our echo." The cry of unity came as a ghastly harmony, almost beautiful in its tragic resonance. "You must embrace the darkness to find her." As the chorus continued, the shadows tightened their grip, suffocating hope. Frantic, I tore my gaze away from their tormented visages, feeling the last strands of my resolve flickering. A thin veil of light pulsed nervously within me as I grasped onto a truth: their suffering was the keeper's doing, their lament the fuel it nourished upon. Suddenly, the ground beneath the void began to shift, trembling and splintering. A shocking rift opened wide, revealing what lay beneath the very fabric of this horror. Turbulent flashes of untold darkness churned as if a malignant void awaited, breathing in sync with my heartbeat. The keeper emerged again, immense and shadow-like, its malevolent eyes locking onto my brow. "You will learn the price of love lost," it crooned, each word dripping with venom and a promise of unearthly torment. Then, the pulse of the abyss quickened around me, swirling shadows rising into a tempest of chaotic fury that seemed poised to shred reality itself. I was being pulled into the grisly maw of its hunger, at the mercy of its sadistic desires. "No!" I screamed as the shadows encroached, clawing at my skin, ripping at the remnants of my light. In that moment of desperation, I steeled my heart and screamed out Mia's name louder than before, an invocation meant to pierce the very fabric of this dark tapestry. "Mia! Where are you?" Time stretched and warped around me, as if the cosmos stood still in anticipation. I grasped for the diminishing warmth of her memory, praying for it to illuminate a path through the infernal clutches of this nightmare. And then I felt it, a flicker of movement beneath the pulsating void. Glimpses of light began to seep through the cracks, casting shadows of what could only be a silhouette. It pulled at my chest, promising salvation from the encroaching darkness, an invitation that set my heart racing, fraught with tension and hope. "Choose, boy!" the keeper roared, its voice reverberating with both rage and laughter. "Choose now, for time won't wait for those who love too deeply." The shadows swirled frantically, the silhouette blossomed with a familiar shape, a warm beacon amidst the cold fear, a body lost to the darkness. A guttural sound ripped from my throat, a fragile hope curling into the darkness, as I felt comprehension grip me tight. Did I want to plunge into the void to save her, at the risk of losing everything, every part of my essence? Or would I relinquish her light for the vile certainty of my own survival? And just as I was about to step forward, rumors of voices surged all around, drowning out my doubts. "Save us, save her," they urged, spanning the expanse of the void, their cries merging into a terrifying symphony of grief and despair that promised no absolution. Wrenching, anguished thoughts clawed at me as the rift widened. The shadows roared, willing me to yield under the pressure of their suffocating embrace. My heart ached with indecision, but before I could bring forth a coherent response, the ground beneath my feet fractured, and I was pulled down into the heart of that all-consuming void, tumbling through a kaleidoscope of torment and madness. The last thing I heard was the echo of Mia's voice, barely a whisper but alive with warmth, "Don't let go," and then nothing. I awoke with a start, gasping as jagged edges of dread scraped against my lungs. The air was dense and cloying, a bittersweet odor of decay and ash filling my nostrils. I lay sprawled on the damp ground, a world of darkness yawning around me, vibrant with creature sounds, the rustle of unseen things, the flutter of wings, and the oppressive silence that I pushed myself to my feet, trembling, the remnants of that unfathomable void thrumming in my consciousness. "Mia!" I shouted again, though each call echoed back devoid of life. Only the whispers of shadows responded, hissing between the branches of skeletal trees that towered above like watchers in the night. The ground pulsed beneath me, a soft quaking that seemed to beckon me further into the shadow-strewn thicket, a thicket alive with the mingling of light and darkness, an eternal dusk where unseen eyes flickered in the corners of my vision. Each step stirred the fog at my heels, thickening like an eager predator tasting the air for familiar blood. In the distance, a soft glow emerged, barely piercing the night. I moved toward it, my heart a treacherous drumbeat, wondering if salvation lay ahead or further damnation. The chill of the surroundings gnawed at me, whispering tales of those who had come before me, souls lured by false hopes, bound forever within the insatiable darkness of Heol Fanog. As I approached the light, familiar silhouettes formed within its embrace, figures draped in spectral garments, their features indistinguishable yet hauntingly poignant. Faces of anguish and longing morphed into one another, a grotesque collage of desire and despair that rang of forgotten wishes. It was an ethereal congregation, a gathering of those lost in life, now eternally seeking what was stripped from them. "Join us," one of them implored, its voice a lingering echo of my own thoughts. "Find her. Save her. We can help you, but you must trust the darkness." "No," I gasped. I refused to be ensnared by this despair. I stumbled backward, feeling disoriented as shadows clawed at my heels, entreating me with bitterness and sweet desperation, but there was something deeper, a more profound horror echoing around me that resonated within my very core. When I caught a flicker of something, a faster heartbeat burrowed beneath the howling wind, a voice more certain amidst the shadows. "Help me!" It was Mia. I recalled her warmth as I strained against my fear, the darkness writhing around me, urging me to succumb. The glow flared momentarily, erupting into a flare that shattered the morose atmosphere, smothering it with an urge to turn. Yet, just as I drew closer, the flickering silhouettes vanished, petals of despair dissolving into the night. "Where are you?" I pleaded, feeling my legs weaken beneath me, the air thickening with dread, the shadows now swirling like tempestuous spirits angry at my presence. I felt their cold fingers brush against my skin, stinging with a biting chill that ignited panic within my heart. This was a battle, a confrontation with souls tethered by grief. Anguished cries resounded, merging with the desperate echoes of secrets lost and unsaid. "Come closer." They beckoned, the chorus blending into a melody laced with a hint of seduction. "Embrace the darkness. It holds power beyond your understanding." But then, amidst the rising tide of despair, a glimmer of light beckoned again. Mia's essence, an ethereal silhouette that twisted and turned, always just out of reach. I extended my hand toward the luminescent figure, fighting against the tide of sorrow that threatened to pull me under, and then the shadows erupted, morphing into a visage that sent chills coursing through my veins. The keeper had returned, its presence like an all-consuming black fog that swallowed the faint remnants of hope. "You think to save her?" It growled, each word drenched in malice. "You think to defy the true nature of this place?" "No. I won't let you." I shouted defiantly, feeling the spark of rebellion ignite within me. The darkness crescendoed, swirling around me like a hurricane, grasping at the remnants of my courage. I felt as if the ground beneath me could split again at any moment, and the very essence of the keeper lashed out, enwrapping me in tendrils of despair as I stood resolute, a beacon to rescue hope or be extinguished. Then, momentarily, my hand brushed against the light. An electric jolt coursed through my body as I grasped for Mia, yearning to bridge the chasm that separated us. "I won't abandon you," I gasped, feeling warmth seep into my heart, defying the icy grip of despair. Just as I felt the threads of our fate intertwining, the keeper bristled, its form convulsing like an angry serpent. "No. You dare defy the will of those bound to darkness?" It unleashed a horrifying roar, a cacophony of anguished souls colliding with despair, and before I could react, the shadows surged, coiling around me like chains of ice, ready to drag me into the breach of the abyss. "Save me!" echoed Mia's voice, piercing through the tempestuous cries of lost souls, and as I clawed against the overwhelming tide, my vision began to fade, a whirlpool spiraling into the dark abyss that promised to consume every ounce of light left within me, and with no recollection of what hand had earned me that moment of time, I felt myself slipping away, fingers clutching toward that lost silhouette, praying it wouldn't fade, praying against the suffocating void that threatened to swallow my very soul. As the darkness tightened around me, obscuring every ounce of light, an insane thought hissed through my mind. What if saving Mia would demand far more than the shadows led me to believe? In that final moment of clarity, an unseen force ruptured through the threads that bound me, dragging me further into the consuming vortex, where reality collided with nightmarish dread. The last whispered promise was a howl against the howling air, stark and penetrating, wrenching my heart as the darkness closed in. "Don't let go," echoed into oblivion. And then the abyss swallowed my scream. When the darkness released me, I felt it was a free fall through an endless chasm of silence. The weightlessness rendered my mind numb, suffocating me in a blanket of despair. I could still hear that haunting echo, a desperate cry suspended in time. "Don't let go!" It reverberated against the walls of my consciousness as if calling me back, urging me toward the flickering essence of Mia. Then an abrupt jolt in gravity crushed me against a cold, damp surface. I gasped, drawing in the musty taste of earth that choked my lungs. I lay sprawled upon a hard ground, but the breath caught in my throat as I processed my surroundings. It was a dismal cavern, jagged stones jutting from the walls like teeth waiting to consume me. Dripping water echoed through the cavern, each drop echoing through the hollow spaces, merging with the distant cries of the lost. That I blinked against the darkness, fighting to push the thick fog from my mind. My heart raced as I remembered Mia, her pleas entwined with the very substance of the shadows. "Where are you?" I croaked, feeling my voice hitch with a blend of terror and longing. Silence closed in, but the air crackled, as if carrying attempts at communication from places unseen, whispers slithering through the darkness like serpents. That I stood, teetering on unsteady legs, and began to explore the cavern, each step echoing with a sinister cadence as though the stones themselves reacted to my presence. My fingertip grazed the wall, and a surge of cold climbed my hand, igniting a creeping sensation that wormed its way into my soul. That malice felt familiar, an echo of the keeper's rage. As I ventured deeper into the cavern, faint shapes flickered in the corners of my vision, too quick to grasp. I turned, heart racing, and there they were, figures bound in chains of shadow, their eyes glistening like dying embers. They writhed and clawed at the air in vain, their mouths moving, but no words emerged, only an orchestra of anguished silence. "Save her," one of them implored, its face a distorting tapestry of sorrow. "The darkness holds her captive. You must look beyond." I recoiled, instinct urging me to back away, but the pull of what I had come to discover was stronger. "Mia! I'll find you!" I shouted, channeling every ounce of strength. My voice reverberated, defiant in the abyss, but the figures merely swayed as if their spirits had long succumbed to the weight of despair. But then a flicker. Just ahead, a violet glow flared, thrumming in an unsettling rhythm that resonated like the heartbeat of the cavern itself. The shadows stretched and curled with a life of their own as I approached, sending icy fingers entwining around my ankles, desperate to claim me. "No!" I gritted through clenched teeth, pushing forward against the tide. As I neared the glow, the air thickened with an unnameable energy, oscillating like 100 strings plucked in tension. And there, pulsating before me, was an altar of sorts, a grotesque slab wrought from slick obsidian, etched with symbols that seethed and writhed beneath the surface, whispering unholy secrets beneath my very feet. Mia. The name clawed its way out of my mouth, a sacrificial cry yielding to the oppressive atmosphere. As the glow intensified, I saw the outlines within the brilliance, a pair of hands reaching toward me, fingers clawing through the veil that divided me from her, illuminated against a backdrop of shadows. "Help me please," her whisper snaked through the humidity, laced with fear and desperation. With renewed fervor, I surged forward, but the ground beneath that sacrificial altar trembled violently as a chilling laugh erupted through the cavern. The keeper. The cacophony swelled, drowning out Mia's voice as my heart threatened to shatter against the jagged stones. "You dare challenge the binding?" The darkness recoiled, forming into the monstrous visage I had encountered before. "You think to unearth souls tethered to calamity?" Its shadow twisted, expanding against the flickering glow, swallowing hope in its wake. And then, something even more terrible occurred. With each syllable it uttered, the chains constraining the tortured souls thin as desperation dwindled, their moans morphing into a discordant symphony of rage. "Fool!" It snarled, its gaze piercing into the heart of my resolve. "You will join them soon enough." The cymbals beneath my feet ignited with raw energy, ants of agony creeping up my legs as the ground reverberated with ancient power. I squeezed my eyes shut as jagged shards of sorrow cut through the air, awakening memories that were never mine, a parade of lost ones, their faces still and expressionless, tearing at the essence of my soul. "Open your eyes." A voice snapped, distinct and sharp, pulling me from the darkest reaches of despair. I opened my eyes to a vortex swirling just beyond the altar, where Mia's figure warred against the shadows, straining against an unseen force. Her presence, a flicker amidst the storm, sent a surge of warmth surging through my veins. "Fight!" I called out, the darkness quaking at the intensity of my plea, but just as I felt the threads of time intertwining, the keeper surged forward, erupting with fury. "I'll rend your destiny." It jubilated as the shadows enveloped me, and with them came the dark promises of binding fate. As I felt the blinding energy swirl toward a breaking point, I realized with horror the keeper wasn't just here to thwart my rescue. It thirsted for my soul, intending to use it as fuel to perpetuate the curse of Heol Fanog. "No!" I screamed, gripping the altar with frayed resolve, but tendrils of darkness lashed around me, writhing to drag me into the pit of despair. It was a fight against an overwhelming force that threatened to engulf everything I was, but amidst the chaos, I saw Mia again, now more than a flicker, but a beacon drawn in fire. "Lend me your strength," she cried, and just as I struggled to find my voice, I remembered the promise of battle that echoed through my core. But as I gathered my resolve, I felt it, the subtle shifting of ground beneath my feet, a rumble of dread, as the boundaries of darkness drew tighter and the keeper unleashed a primal scream that shattered the caverns, echoing through the void. It was then I realized beyond the lattice of fate, the keeper harbored a dread that was not merely bound to this place, but intertwined with our very existence. With a single, devastating act of defiance, I felt reality splinter, and with a churning pit of horror in my stomach, the altar buckled, the illumination dimmed into an oblivion darker than the shadows themselves, leaving me with one horrifying realization: there might already be far too much at stake to save Mia, and somehow, I had become a part of the cursed tapestry. As light and shadows died in a surge of chaos, an electric shock coursed through my core, and in that terrifying moment, I succumbed. "Where are you, Mia?" I breathed, and from the depths of night, a chilling laughter unfurled, promising I'd find out soon enough. I awoke to a startling quiet, the silence pressing against my ears like a suffocating fabric, wrapping tightly, suffocating the remnants of my memories. The darkness around me felt all too familiar yet unsettlingly foreign, as if I'd stepped into a thick fog that barely let the sense of the familiar penetrate. My body ached, each pulse echoing the lingering pangs of dread. I lay on the cold stone floor, the weight of despair coiling around me, and I instinctively called out, "Mia." The name slipped from my lips like a prayer into the void. Desperation clawed at my chest like fingernails scratching against wood, invoking shadows that clung to my heart. I scrambled to my feet, breathing in the stale air as my heart thumped with the weight of dread. Every inch of this cavern whispered to me, lost souls, unnerving echoes of anguish as shadows darted in the corners of my vision, hiding secrets I had unfolded yet barely grasped. Where are you? I felt the words travel from my tongue brittle with panic, each syllable craggy with fear. There was no response, just the echo of my pleas chased by the slumping remains of silence that had long engulfed this cursed place. As I waded through the darkness, the chilling thought nestled deep within me. The veil of reality shimmered, turning subtly darker. It was as if something shifted within the depths of this haunted world, a faint flicker of movement trailing along the stone walls, the whispers beginning again, dragging at my sanity. "Save us," echoed in sickening unison, the voices of souls trapped beyond hope lingering in the air like ghosts watching with intent. I stumbled across a vast chamber, sentinels of shadows lurking at the edges, waiting to ensnare me. And then there it was, a pulsing glow against the wall, a small sphere reflecting hues of scarlet and gold, illuminating fractured images of figures entwined in sorrow, their faces gaunt, staring vacantly into nothingness. I had seen those eyes before. They belonged to the lost. "Who are you?" I whispered, kneeling closer to the orb, breathing in the sense of earth and decay that mingled heavily beneath its brilliance. My heartbeat quickened. "Show me," I demanded, feeling the fragile tension build around me, my soul igniting with raw determination. Suddenly the orb flickered violently, sending a searing jolt that pushed me back, and from its depths surged tendrils of shadow, reaching like grasping hands toward my arms. An overwhelming surge of dread crashed down upon me, leeching hope from my heart. "You are chosen," a chilling voice whispered, smooth as silk but layered with malice, "to join the chorus of the lost." I recoiled, blood thundering in my ears. "No. I want to let you take me." I felt the shadows encroaching, every flick of movement stealing my breath, begging me to join their lament. "Sam," the voice was a whisper in the dark, a echo of my dreams, a dream that had become a nightmare. "Help me." Gasping, memories of Mia flashed before me, the warmth of her laughter wrapping around me like the light in the ethos. "I'm here," I called, trying to reach through the grasping darkness. The orb pulsed with light again, refracting into thousands of floating pieces. I watched as they reformed, a figure, flickering especially familiar. There she was. My heart soared for a fleeting moment until the keeper surfaced, its wicked laugh swirling around me like a tempest. "You think you can save her?" The keeper sneered, shadows quaking with vibrancy, delighting in my torment. So naive, it spread its dark wings across the cavern like a shroud, obscuring everything I held dear. "The curse of Heol Fanog has bound her, bound you both." My heart dropped under the weight of realization, and my vision stuttered as fragments of truth hurled into my mind. This was no mere spirit, no ancient ghost lingering in this forsaken space. It was a force of dread, a monstrosity sustaining itself on anguish and fear, feeding off every soul ensnared in this nightmare. "No!" I erupted, anger surging through me. "I will not succumb to your malevolence. I came here for Mia." And as I raised my voice, shards of intention ignited in my core. A pulse of furious light radiated forth, clashing against the masses of shadows, thrumming with a fragile warmth that clawed through the air between us, a breath of life against the encroaching darkness. With a guttural scream, the keeper charged, but just as I thought all was lost, the glowing orb exploded into a cascade of luminescence, illuminating the cavern, the darkness billowing in response, writhing like serpent scales. The glowing fragments spiraled around me, and I felt Mia's essence merge with the light, a tether binding us together. "Fight it!" I screamed, positioning myself against the rising tide, harnessing the pulse of energy coursing through me. Together I charged forth, propelled by something deeper, love, fury, deliverance colliding into an explosive unity. But even as hope surged, the darkness solidified, a final bastion against my will. The keeper laughed deep and guttural, as if erasing our shared light. "You think you can free her? You have already lost." It shrieked, the shadows curling tighter, squeezing, intent on constricting every breath. "Join us," the shadowed souls wailed, pleading in their despair, dragging my thoughts to the edge of oblivion. But the warmth surged within me, the courage that flickered behind the dread shattered their cacophony. I want to let you take her. The rage that coursed through me melded with the light as I propelled forward, forming a barrier that seemed to push the shadows back, forcing them into a corner of chaos that it unwillingly separated, and with each pulse of my heart, the shadows withdrew, retreating under the gleaming glow. Help her, save her, the tortured figures echoed, their voices losing coherence yet capturing my essence. Just then, from the depths of darkness, Mia's figure materialized, trapped yet persistent, eyes glistening in the dawning light that surrounded us. "Sam!" she cried out, and with that saccharine ache of recognition, I surged forth, my heart pounding with renewed vigor. The keeper shrieked in rage, flaring massive shadows that quaked the ground beneath me. "You cannot save what was never meant to be saved." But I could see Mia, and in that moment, I realized the key to our escape lay in her prescient trust. The light sprang alive, illuminating our path. "Together," she echoed, intertwining our fates as we approached the glowing orb of warmth, united, forcing the keeper back. "No!" it roared, voice laced with venom and anguish as it clawed at the air. "You will pay a price." But it was too late. Power surged from the depths, transforming the shadows into ethereal radiance, swallowing the keeper's darkness whole. Mia and I clasped our hands tightly as the orb illuminated in blinding light, the shadows ripped apart by the brilliance that poured through us, a kaleidoscopic explosion of euphoria. But as the keeper's laughter morphed, a part of me held fast. Uncertainty gnawed at the corners of my mind. Then, with a quiet realization, the light burst in an unforgiving wave. And as the shadows dissipated into wisps of vapor, I feared it was not victory but transference, a price for freedom. In the midst of the brilliance, I felt something tugging, an echo of anguish wrapping around my heart. The silhouettes began to form again, visions of lost souls filling the void, warning and claiming, clawing at my consciousness. And just as the profound warmth birthed hope, the chilling stir of dread filled my thoughts. With a silent gasp, I turned, and it was then that I saw it. The keeper had not been vanquished, just transformed. It stood there, a vessel reborn, seething with the darkness I thought I had escaped. That I felt the cold wrap around me, a familiar weight pulling at my heart, a growing realization blooming within. It wanted more than just my essence, it wanted my soul to complete its cycle, as the price paid in the end would be greater than I could have ever fathomed. And in that crucial heartbeat, binding time and dread, I knew the truth. I had freed Mia and myself, but the keeper now lingered within, feeding upon the remnants of lost souls, evolving and twisting into something I could not define. "Sam?" she asked, voice laced with fear. "What is happening?" I turned to her, regret and understanding reflecting in my eyes, a price to pay for salvation. "Mia," I murmured, "the curse of Heol Fanog is one both of us will carry to the end." And then the shadows coiled around my heart, encompassing in darkness, an embrace both familiar and fearsome. Together, we whispered into the night, "Join us," and in that fragmented moment of clarity, I realized the horror had only just begun.